Okay. Um, okay, today is the 19th of March, 2026, and I'm delighted to have Alan with me on this channel. Yes. Now, I run the um, Spiritual Journey 21, I call it, um, which I started in 2019. And I really like to talk to Alan because the circle of white light sounds like an amazing thing. Yes. So perhaps you could tell us a little about your circle of white light, Alan.
Okay, well, thanks for inviting me on, David. Much appreciated. Circle of White Light came about when I was living in London and working in London, and when I had my awakening back in 2001, and the I had this kind of download over a 24-hour period where all this information was coming in when I realized what was going on in the world when I was putting all the pieces together. And I thought that, we've had it. There's no solution with this, the elites are going to win and that's it. But then they always say when the student is ready, the master will appear. And within 2 weeks of that awareness, that epiphany, I got involved in the spiritual side. And the development circle that I joined, the spiritual development circle that I joined, was called Circle of White Light. So basically, when I moved back over to Ireland and I set up my own spiritual circle, I called it Circle of White Light. So now that I have the radio show set up and it's been going since March 2019, the Circle of White Light focuses on solutions and a better way of thinking. So we're focusing on solutions. I know you're there, David, somewhere. Something's moving about, all right. You can see the camera moving.
Hi. I'm still here. Don't worry.
You're still there. So basically, yeah, so Circle of White Light has really got to do with not so much, we all know what the problems are in life. I've spent 9.5 years on my old radio show talking about the problems. So Circle of White Light is really focusing more on the solutions and trying to find the solutions and help people put something together and give them ideas of what they can do. So that's really what Circle of White Light is.
Can you give me an example of a solution that you found?
Yeah, well, basically, what I normally apply the psychology because I have a background in psychology. I normally apply psychology to a lot of the situations that we come across. And when you become a inverted commas conspiracy theorist, even when you're trying to give the information to people and you have the actual evidence, they won't accept the information. So I was wondering what's going on. Back in 2016, I was going, hang on a minute, I have all the evidence here and they're still not believing it. What's going on? So I went back to my psychology and I started analyzing about how people's minds work regarding belief systems and basically I started analyzing that, and then from 2017 onwards I started applying psychology and doing seminars and talking to people about the waking up process. Everybody was talking about the problems, but very few people were talking about when somebody's in the matrix and they step outside the matrix, that waking up process, what's going on there. So I applied all the psychology to that. And at the end of the seminar, I would give them the tools and the solutions of how to go about waking people up in their life if they wanted to wake people up. So that's one example of giving them solutions.
So waking people up. Wow. Um, Sounds interesting. Perhaps you could explain a little bit where you got your psychology from.
Yeah, basically back in 1986, I did a unique training course. It was the first one that was run in Ireland. And as part of the training, they brought in a social psychologist, well, a psychologist teaching social psychology. And the course was 11 months full time. And I was fascinated at this psychology. This psychologist used to come in and get the class to do things. We'd experiment and he'd show us techniques and things that, you know, human beings would do that we take for granted, or things that would happen. And we do examples of this. And I was just bowled over. And one of the books that he told us to buy, and I always recommend this book, is a book called Body Language by Julius Fast, which was written in the 1970s. And it was just a brilliant book. It really just taught you an awful lot about stuff. So from that training course and learning all about the psychology and social psychology and the methods, I carried on studying and training. And of course, when you go into the corporate world, you go on training course and they teach you all about that as well, staff training and management training and all the techniques to use. And I've also been involved in sales as well. And in sales, they teach you all about psychology. They all teach about selling and what techniques to use. So since 1986, I have literally been involved in learning, studying, and even teaching psychology, or the methods that I have. I'm not a psychologist. Didn't go to college, 3 years of being indoctrinated with psychology, but I have trained in it, and I have been studying it since 1986. So I'd like to think I know a little bit about it.
Right. You also brought up the matrix. Yes. Can you explain what you mean by the matrix?
Well, there's two kinds of people out there. There's the people who are inside the system and they believe everything they're told. They believe the politicians don't lie. And like COVID was an example. You know, no, I have to be very careful what I say with certain things because I know this is going on YouTube. But people believed everything they were told by the media, and they have this trust in the media, trust in the politicians, and they just do what they're told. And obviously, I refer to the Matrix because of the movie, The Matrix, where you get the red pill and the blue pill. So basically, these people are in the matrix and they just don't know any different. They just believe the system is, we all trust that. I mean, we all trust the system. At one point, we all were in the matrix and we all trusted the system. It's not until you have something happening in your life. So you could be made unemployed, and could be unemployment. It could be maybe you've been laid off your job, you know. It could be an illness with you, an illness with a family member. And then you start asking questions and you go, hang on a minute, that doesn't seem right to me. And then you go down the rabbit hole and you start investigating, you know, maybe it's smart meters, maybe it's, I don't know, Wi-Fi or the fluoride in the water. And when you start going down the rabbit hole, then you start stepping outside the matrix and start asking questions. And you realize that actually we've been lied to. So that's really what the matrix is all about.
Okay, you brought up another subject, rabbit hole. Where do you think that came from? Yes, going down the rabbit hole.
Well, isn't it got to do with isn't it Alice gone down the rabbit hole? Isn't
Yeah.
that's where it all came from? And trust me, over the years, I've been down so many rabbit holes, and sometimes they don't lead to anything. Sometimes there's nothing down there. But you have to go down there anyway. There's no point saying to people, don't go down the rabbit hole, there's nothing down that one. No, people have to go down, experience it for themselves, and come back and go, they'll come back up and go, yeah, you're right, there's nothing in there. But you have to go and do it yourself.
Yeah. Well, in 2020, the whole world had a lot of time on its hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were being locked down. So I had time to study. And I decided what I wanted to do in 2019. And the white circle that I am interested in really is the circle of astrology. Yes.
Mm.
Got a paper here. So circle of astrology. I started with this paper in 2019, and you just build upon it. Yes. So that's my circle of multicolored light. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're all attracted to certain things in our life. And as I've said before, you know, sometimes things come into my energy field, and it doesn't resonate with me. So instead of, I'd never poo-poo it, but what I do is say, right, it's not resonating with me now. I'm going to stick it on the shelf. And when it does resonate with me, I'll have a look at it. A device called the Pain Genie, which I have been trained in and I use and I help people to heal. It's energy healing. That came into my energy field. And for 2 years, I put it on the shelf. It wasn't resonating with me. And then after 2 years, I took it off the shelf. And then I was amazed at the power of the Pain Genie and what I could do and everything else. So it's not me knocking anything. I will just say it's not resonating with me now. So I put it on the shelf. So when it comes to astrology, I'm kind of the same with that. It's, I don't understand a lot of the things that the astrologers are saying, and I'm not sure whether they're saying it because it's an ego thing, because as if to say, well, look what I know all about this information, you know, and it's not relevant to me. I don't need to know whether Venus is in Saturn or whatever. I don't need to know that. The same way that I don't need to know how my car engine works to get it fixed, to drive my car. I don't need to know how the engine works. All I need to know is I get my car, turn the key, and the car works, and I go there. If the car breaks down, I give it to a mechanic. So with astrology, at this moment in time, if I want to get my chart done, I'll go to an astrologer, but I don't want them. If I book them for an hour and half an hour of that, they're telling me all about Venus being in Saturn, that's irrelevant to me. It doesn't mean anything to me. Just give me the information that I need. That's the way I'd see it. Now, I know that's not, I know these astrologers like explaining where the information is coming from, but it's like telling me how an engine's working when I'm not really interested in finding out how the engine's working. I just want you to fix my car so I can go to work or I can go shopping or whatever. So astrology to me at the moment is one of the things on the shelf. I can accept it. I can understand it. I know a lot of people put a lot of study into it, and that's fine. But for me personally, it's just something that it's, if I want a reading, I'll just go to somebody and get a reading.
Yeah. Well, as I say to the people who listen to my channel, you can get a free reading from Cafe Astrology, and you can have your birth chart done, all the planets, the chart, and a full reading of exactly what each part of that means. And you can go further into it. I mean, you can spend years going into all the different aspects of it, just like you can spend years looking at different engines and how to put different engines together and take them apart. Yes. Um, Now, I wouldn't say that I'm amazingly good with astrology, but I do look at the different parts, yes, and what the different parts mean. And if you put a couple of parts together, what that means, and you can put three parts together, and you can build up a big, big picture. Now, the very good astrologers, they put about 50 pieces together to come out with some interesting ideas, which is kind of above my pay grade, as you would say. Um, I just look at different parts and how it works and how it functions. Um, so I'm not what you would call it an astrologer. I'm an amateur astrologer, and for me, it's a hobby, that an ongoing hobby which you can always build on. Yes, you can pick it up one day, put it down another day. And every month now for the past, 5 or 6 years, I've, at the beginning of the month, I'd say, right, it's now Aries, and this is what Aries is. And I go into different aspects about Aries, or I've prepared a video for tomorrow, and it's about Aries, but also it's about uh, all the signs now because we've spent years going through all the different parts, the planets, the signs, what it all means, all the different parts, and now we're getting to the part where we can look at the bigger picture of it, and that's astrology. Now, when I started with that, I believed we were living on a planet like I would say a good 90% of the inhabitants of Earth believe, yes, we're living on a planet. But in 2021, yes, because we had this pause, this breakdown, this lockdown, I had the chance to deep dive into the subject. And after 3 days, it was like eureka moment. And 3 days of solid study into the subject, and I found out that we're living on a flat Earth. Yes, and I could see it. I couldn't explain everything, but I could see that the possibility was there, and the it was more. It felt it resonated with me more than the heliocentric model. Yes, and so from that moment, I started to paint my world as a flat Earth. Yes, and so years later, I can say, well, now, yes. I mean, in 2021, you could say it was 50-50. Yes, I was 50-50 after 3 days study, but the bias was towards flat Earth. But now, after all this time and studies, I can say that I'm 99.9% flat Earth, and there's just like 1/10 of a percentage possibility that it's a globe. And that 10th for me isn't really that it's a globe, but it's my sympathy towards people who believe it's a globe. Yes. So it's a skeptical sympathy I have.
Okay.
So,
Well, before we get into the flat earth, I just want to go back to astrology just for a minute.
okay.
We have to be very careful. We are very powerful people. People, our abilities and what we can manifest is amazing, and that's been proven time and time again with people curing themselves when they've been given a placebo and they think it's a tablet. And I've just been interviewing a chap called Danny Carroll, who talks about German New Medicine, which is something that was found by a German doctor called Dr. Hammer. And he said that illnesses can be are generally caused by a trauma, and basically just three parts in it. There's the psyche, the brain, and the actual trauma itself. Okay. And we do have the ability to manifest things into our life because of our subconscious. And I know in astrology, people talk about Mercury retrograde and, oh, my hairdryer's not working, or my car's not working on this. I mean, maybe people are programming and manifesting them issues in some way, either directly or indirectly, because they have this such a belief that when Mercury retrograde comes around, that things are supposed to break. And they do, because they have this belief in it, and they're causing it happening, maybe illnesses in their body or something, right? So I think you have to be very careful on every belief system, not just astrology, but everything. That what are you taking into your mind? What are you programming your mind? What are you believing? Because we are very powerful people and we can manifest things. It's been done before, as I say, with placebos. So you have to be very careful. So when I hear about, oh, it's Mercury retrograde, everything doesn't work, I just ignore that completely, and I don't really have any issues at all. So that's why I kind of question certain things like that. But as I say, not just astrology, but we have to be very careful what we think. Regarding the flat earth, well, I've always said it. I focus on the things that I can change, not the things I can't. Whether the earth is square, round, oblong, to me, there's nothing I can do about it. So why do I want to put my energy into something I cannot change? Now, it's a fascinating subject. I do like the idea of, the whole flat Earth and the ice wall and the trip with Admiral Byrd did in 1947, and the whole idea of what happened with Hitler in 1943 going to Argentina and Swabialand, and the land beyond the ice wall, and the fact we're in a dome, and there's a ceiling. In they can go into space, but they can't get any farther than that when we have the Van Allen belt there anyway of radiation. So there's so much that we're not being told, for whatever reason, and also the deal that every country has signed that nobody can go past the ice wall. Now that's sinister in itself. Is the Earth flat? Are there ways that can be travelled to other lands quicker? And the way the mapping's done, yes, this is all being controlled and manipulated. Hopefully, one day they'll turn around and tell us that, yes, you're right, the Earth is flat. I mean, even that map that's on the wall in the UN says it's flat, and that has the ice wall around it and land past that. And I know there's old maps that you've talked about that have different land masses than the are now, the way it said they're on the maps. So, again, we're being lied to. What's the truth? How do we find the truth? How can we confirm the truth? So, that's our challenge.
Yeah. Confirming the truth it can be very difficult. Making your own mind up, staying neutral on certain subjects, and having a mystery box. Yes, some things are just so much of a mystery. You put them in the mystery box for a later time. You would say put it on the shelf. Yes, and get on with your life. Be positive in what you're doing, and live your life to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, totally. Well, they always say there's three truths: your truth, my truth, and the real truth.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they say there's three sides to a story. Yes. Whatever. Yeah. That's pretty true as well. Yes.
Now the documentaries that you asked me to have a look at, which I did a few weeks ago, were very interesting, about Tartaria and previous lands and the Cabbage Patch Kids and Antarctica and stuff like that. They were very good. I found them very interesting.
Yeah. Well, on that, the idea, I've never really taken climate change seriously. Yes. But I have taken the idea that that the Earth is subject to cycles. I've taken that seriously.
Totally.
And in that documentary, he's found the cycles that, or he mentions, I think it's 8 cycles, previous cycles that we've been through, and the last one, and he says they occur about every 700 years, and we can dip down into a little ice age, as he puts it, and it might be very brief, but going down and coming up, getting back to normal, that can take 100 or maybe 300 years. But if that's happening every 700 years, we wouldn't know about it. And they could hide that, and they could also bring that into the globe, saying, oh, that's what happens on the globe, and it's been happening for millions of years, which in my mind it isn't true. Yes. The Earth is relatively new, and is it more than 7,000 years old? I mean, how can we prove that it is, or it isn't? It's got to be a belief system, and really down to faith. I know you like the Bible.
Well, I don't like the Bible. Let me clarify that. I don't like the Bible. I'm not a religious person at all. I have my opinions about the Bible, But I'm not saying I like the Bible. I'll have my opinions about the Bible.
Don't you say Bible?
Well, that's it. You know, they love playing with words. So the Bible, if you break it down and split it, it's do you buy the bull? Bible, do you buy the bull? So that's just again my kind
Yeah.
of opinion on playing with words. You know.
Well, I think from your point of view, it's really Bible.
Yeah, well, you know, as I've said before, you know, parts of the Bible was written by the Pisa family 200 years after the event of Christ. So, you know, if somebody writes about you, David, in 200 years' time, how accurate is that going to be? And then going back to, you know, when they had all these, the reason why the Christians were thrown to the lions was because practicing Christianity was illegal. So if you are caught doing it, you are thrown to the lions. But at the time, Emperor Constantine was losing the favor of the people, and his mother was sympathetic to the Christians. So he made Christianity legal. But they said they had all these different factions of Christianity. And he said, right, we're going to get you all together, and which was called the meeting of Nicaea. And they got them all together and put them in a room and said, right, we're going to have one book and we'll call it the Bible. And that's why there's over 1,000 misinterpretations or incorrect information in the Bible because of all these different Christian faiths getting together writing the one book. So, you know, how true is the Bible if that's the case? Now, you know, again, it's probably an allegory for people. There's things in the Bible that say, you know, don't hurt man and treat other people like you want to be treated. I get all that, and that's all the good stuff, right? And I don't have a problem with that. But you still have to question the Bible. In the court of law, a Bible could not be used because it's circular logic. You know, it's true because it's in the Bible. I mean, that's circular logic. I could have Alan's Bible, and it's in Alan's Bible, it contradicts the real Bible, and I'll go, well, check my Bible out, and the judge would just pick up my Bible and throw it out and go, well, that's not evidence. So, you know, I mean, we have to get down to the bare tax and look at the facts, and don't be too swallowed up by belief systems, you know, and what we're being told. We have to research and investigate. If my opinion changes next week and I find out that I'm wrong, hey, I'll change it because I have a fluid belief system.
Right. It looks as if we're on a timer again for this.
Okay, you need to go back in and make me a host again. So go into participant and click the three little dots on my name and click on make host.
Well, we if I change host, oh, so you're now the host, and
Now, has them dots gone away? Has the timer gone away?
no, the timer's still there.
That's
So
weird. That shouldn't be doing that.
so so we're stuck again. We're stuck again.
Okay, it shouldn't be doing that because if you've just made me the host, I'm the host, yeah. I think that let's see what happens. If the timer goes off, just send me another link, okay? If it doesn't go
Okay.
off, we'll carry on.
Right. Okay. I'll do that. Um, so yeah, back to the Bible. Now, whatever you think about all the stories that are in there, I think the Bible does give you a step up into the spiritual dimension. Yes. Um, I don't know how many times you've read the Bible, but I've read it at least 5 times. And what I found is it does go around in circles, but it does put you on into a biblical spiritual world, and that is interesting. Um, is it necessary? Hey, I mean, there are millions of people that don't even know about the Bible. So what about them? Yes. Um,
Again, well, we all have the ability for discernment, and we all have the ability. We all know what's right and wrong. You know, whether if you want to do something that's wrong and justify it to yourself that you did the right thing when you know you did the wrong thing. I'll give you an example. During World War II, a lot of soldiers actually didn't shoot to kill because their innate understanding of religion and the Bible and thou shalt not kill was so ingrained in their mind that they would actually purposely miss and not aim to kill, believe it or not. Now, the American military realized this after World War II, so they decided to take and put together a psychological program to get past that stage. And now it's up to about 92%, where when soldiers go in and get trained, they break them down, they break their ego down, and they break them down and they say, you are not a person anymore, you are part of a group. And they brainwash them to the level now that they can actually go ahead and take a gun and shoot and not worry about that. Now, if you want to see an example of this breaking down of the ego, if you watch Gordon Ramsay Kitchen Nightmares, right? Gordon Ramsay uses the same psychological principles on the chefs when he goes in. He knows he has to break down their ego because the chef is saying, my food is brilliant and everybody loves my food. And a lot of the time it's rubbish. So before he can make any changes, he has to break their ego down. And when he breaks their ego down, then he builds it back up. All right. So this is the issue when it comes to, even if people don't know the Bible, morally you still know what's right and wrong.
Well, I guess it's the same when I joined the army. Yes, they broke you down. They broke down your ego, shouted at you, cussed at you, and everything, um, and then rebuilt you.
Hmm.
But they never deprogram you. So you're always in that sort of mind frame. Yes. I
Well,
mean,
it
when I
depends depends what level of programming and what
yeah
level you went to. I mean, the special forces, you know, and I interviewed John Irwin, who's a super soldier, and I interviewed John a few times, and he was definitely didn't have any issues about killing.
yeah, well, lots of people um, might have a problem with killing, but it's a tricky subject. Personally, I've never killed anyone, and I don't intend to. Yes, but that might change. Yes.
Well, the way things are with you're in the UK and I'm in Ireland, and even Trump said he's very concerned about what's going on in Europe with the migration. And you know, it's the survival of the jungle at the end of the day. If if we have a grid down situation, I mean, we're overdue for our Carrington event, which happened in 1859, and it was a mass coronal mass ejection from the sun, and that was in 1859, but we didn't have a grid. If that happened today and our grid went down, we would be stuffed, basically. And it would go to the survival of the jungle, and there'd be roaming gangs going around. And even if you're a prepper and you've all the stuff, you need to be able to protect yourself because people will kick in your door and they'll kill you for a tin of beans. So, you know, hopefully it won't get to that stage, you know, but that is always a potential possibility with the way the sun is hyperactive at the moment because we're in a solar maximum now at the moment and the sun is real active and it's thrown off coronal mass ejections on a regular basis now. So, and we are overdue for our Carrington event.
Right. Okay. Um, my view of the sun is, as a flat earther, is different from yours.
Hmm.
But going back to that video I sent you, I believe he said in the Little Ice Age really finished in 1860. Yes. Um, so there's a tie up between what they say about the sun happening then and um, the Ice Age as well. very interesting subject.
Well, they use the, I mean, David, they use Hollywood to tell us these things. And the movie The Day After Tomorrow, where there was an instant freeze. And I know that archaeologists have found mammoths with
Yeah,
still food in their stomach,
yeah,
undigested, because there seemed to be a sudden freeze, and that's it. They're frozen, and that's why the food wasn't digested. And of course, they did the movie, as I say, The Day After Tomorrow. So, Hollywood and the elites trying to tell us that this is a possibility. Because I agree with you. Everything comes around again. It's secular. So, maybe we are due for that, mini ice age to happen at some point.
well, looking at the graph we were presented with, getting into that um, little ice, getting into the next ice age stage could take 50 to 100 years. And so it would get colder and colder and colder. So we know that it was in there. Yes. And then once you get to the bottom, that's when things can really freeze up. It can be like 50 below all of a sudden. So yes, and then it comes out again. Yes, it rises up, and we go back into warming. So, but I'm not too worried about that because, yeah, perhaps we've got 50 years for that to happen, or 100 years. Yes.
We'd have
Um,
to say, I mean, as you said, in 1860, it happened in London because the Thames had frozen over at the time, and people could actually go on, and they had the World Fair, I believe, was on the Thames because it was so iced over, you could actually, walk across it and everything else. So we know in history it has happened.
yeah. Um, and like I say, I've always rejected the idea of climate change itself, but I've been open to the fact that there are cycles, and yeah, the cycles are part of life. You've got to accept that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
This is part two, my interview with Alan James and the Circle of White Light. Today is the 19th of March, 2026. It's actually a full moon, so we're making a fresh start of things from this point. Another month of going up and down. Now, I could also say that today is my birth date. Not my birthday. My birthday was yesterday. Yes,
Mm.
because yesterday was the Wednesday, and I was born on the Wednesday, so that's my birthday. Today is my birth date, which is the 19th. So I get to celebrate not only the birthday, but the birth date every month. Yes.
Right. Well, that's good. I mean, fair play if you can do that.
Yeah. Um, I believe did you check up on what your birthday was?
No, I didn't get a chance to do that yet. That's on my list to do. I do have a kind of to-do list every day that I put together. At the moment, I don't know whether you can hear the noise in the background, but I have my 3D printers actually in the process of doing some 3D printing. I have another project I'm working on, so I'm yeah, I play around. This is just an example of a 3D print. This is a coaster for your drink, but it's an amateur radio thing, So I make these things every now and again with my 3D printer, or I design stuff and I print them out, or people ask me to do stuff, I'll print them out.
Okay. So you said you think um that you were born on a Saturday. Yes.
I have a funny feeling that it might have been Saturday. Yes.
Yes. Because of your mum being pregnant and
Yeah.
rushing up to the church.
That's why she dreaded going up to the church on the Sunday, and she was 9 months pregnant. So I have a feeling it might have been the Saturday.
Well, do you not go to church on a Sunday?
Well, Sunday is the day for church, but yeah, I don't go to church because I believe that religion is man-made to control man, and regardless of what religion it is, it's all about control. As I said before about Ricky Gervais, he said there's 3,000 gods, but you have the right one. You know what I mean? So if you kind of look at it that way, it kind of makes sense. Um, the whole idea that you have to go to a man in a confessional and tell him your sins, that you can't talk to God or source direct, is a bit ridiculous, because we can talk to source direct. We don't need to go to a man, ordained to, listen to, air issues. I mean, that whole idea of confessional was a method by the church to find out what was going on at the time. Find out the little secrets and who was doing what, when, and where, so they could probably blackmail people with it. Yeah, I'm not. The whole idea of church and religion is not for me. I'm afraid, no.
As if the church would blackmail people.
Of
Yeah.
course, of course.
Yeah. I mean, the black robe has nothing to do with blackmail.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, religion is dying out anyway. I mean, look, I think more and more people are becoming spiritual rather than religious. I mean, I don't like the word God because it's very limiting. I would say source creator rather, because it's more encompassing to the energy and power rather than three letters, God. So,
Yeah.
and again, that's probably part of the Catholic Church restriction and brainwashing us. So I think people are beginning to walk away from the church and become more spiritual rather than be religious.
Yeah, I think some people have woken up and still go to church. Yeah.
Well, some
Yeah.
people find comfort sitting in the church. It's not even because of religion. They just like the idea of going to church because there might be a nice feeling in there. So, that's fair enough.
Exactly. These old buildings, yeah, that they can have a nice feeling. Yes. And when you think of all the energy, the positive energy, the singing, yeah, the higher emotion energy that goes straight into the walls, yes, of a church.
Mm.
When you come back to it every week, that resonates in the walls and comes back to you, and you add more to it each time. So it's all building up. So it's a good place to be.
Well,
Yes.
it depends. It depends what they're singing and how they're doing it. And I'll give you an example from a spiritual point of view. When I was in London, I was involved in the spiritual side of things. And most of the SNU, which is the Spiritual National Union churches, when they did their Sunday service, it was the music was boring and the hymns were boring. And that's why a lot of people probably didn't turn up. But there was a church or spiritual centre down in Slough where they were not part of the SNU. So when they had their Sunday service, instead of having some awful poem or music that nobody ever heard of, they would say, right, we need to get the energy up and running. Let's put on Bob Marley or Westlife or Boyzone or something. And the energy in the room was fantastic because everybody's singing the song of, that they know. And you can tell how good the energy was, but they weren't part of the SNU. So they could do that. But when you're part of the SNU, you had these restrictions that you had to have certain music and certain poems and certain scripts, and it didn't work. And that's why I think music is, I mean, I'm an ex-professional musician anyway, so music is very important. And actually, I have a gig this Saturday. Funny enough, I have so music is very important for everybody, and it can affect your mood, and we all know that. So why not have music that's enlightening and boosts your energy and makes you happy? I mean, they always say if you're feeling a bit down or a bit depressed, always put music on that you like, because you might start off, being a bit stiff, but then after a while you probably start moving to it, and get your body going. So music is very beneficial, but you have to have the right music.
that brings up a good subject. You were a magician, a
Uh,
musician.
Musician. Yeah, maybe I was a magician with my money, but I was definitely a musician anyway.
What instruments did you play?
I'm a drummer.
Ah, yes. Like my dad. My dad was a drummer. Used to be in a band. Yes. I never took to music very much. Yes. Um, too busy with other things. But I did love Top of the Pops
Mm.
when I was younger. Um, especially that song by Queen, the most famous song of all, I suppose.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
You got it, yeah.
Mm.
I thought that was brilliant. Yes, eight
Yeah.
weeks at number one, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's the same. Music is great. I mean, being involved in the music business, and I used to do when I was in London. I was gigging in London. I was doing all the working men's clubs, and we were doing the holiday camps. Clacton, Sheppey, and all them. And it was an eye opener, and it was very entertaining and fun, and sometimes scary at times because sometimes gigs didn't go the way they were supposed to go, and there might have been threats of violence or something. So things happen. But you look back on life and you go, well, that's a life experience. That was fun. But yeah, I've been involved in music since I was 15, really. Um,
well,
so as I say, I have a gig this weekend with a few lads that I jam with over here. So yeah, it's a great way to express yourself.
well, I never did get around to playing a musical instrument, but when I was 12, at school, I used to do the religious services in the morning.
Mm,
Yeah, to an audience of about 100 children. Yes, the house.
mm,
Yes, the school was broken up into three houses, and so um, when it was our house, I could do a service and just read from the Bible. Select a a verse to read. I mean, first of all, I thought, well, this is so simple. Start at the beginning. Yes.
mm,
So I read Genesis chapter 1, and I read all about the creation of the earth.
mm,
Yes. Um, and God made two lights. Yes. The moon and the sun, one for the day and one for the night. Um, that stuck with me. But of course, the other positive thing was I could choose the music that everybody sang, as well as a prayer that we all went into. So that was very enjoyable, and I did that throughout my year. And I was in the chorus. The whole school was in the chorus. We'd all go down to the concert hall. I mean, you got what 600 children, and and they're all on stage singing um, and moving and whatever. And there were, we had concerts with famous people, um, like Cliff Richards and things,
mm.
who came. And we did that every year as well. So from that point of view, that was really my musical background. Yes, just being part of the concert.
Mm.
Um, but I did take part in a competition, a singing competition, and was on stage, but I didn't do very well. Yeah, so that was later on. That was when I was about 23, 24.
Well,
Yeah.
once you partake in it, it's the experience of doing it, not so much winning anything, but just being involved in the whole energy, the whole idea behind it. You're taking part, and stepping outside your comfort zone because a lot of people the ego is there to protect us, and the ego is the voice in their shoulder, and he'll say, David, don't do that, it's scary, you'll make a mistake and everybody will be looking at you and all that. That's the ego trying to protect us, but they're the times that we need to step outside and away from our ego, to shut our ego up and step outside their comfort zone, because it's when we step outside the comfort zone is when we start learning and we start growing. If you stay in your comfort zone all the time, you won't learn, you won't grow, and you won't try things. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are happy staying in their comfort zone. And that's the problem with what we talked about earlier about the matrix. They like the comfortable lie rather than the uncomfortable truth. So they stay in the matrix because they don't like what's outside the matrix. They it's cognitive dissonance. They'll just go, oh no, 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 don't tell me about that. I don't want to know, because it will have a major impact on their life, and they don't want that. They like the programming. You won't wake them people up, unfortunately.
I must admit, I'm like that. When people start talking to me about the globe, I say, no, no, I've heard it all before. Yes, I don't want to go down there. Yes, I don't
Yeah.
want to go into what you believe. Yes, I want to stay here where I've woken up to something that's better. Yes.
Well, look, never be afraid to challenge information, and never be afraid to have a conversation. You know what you know because you've done a lot of research on it. So what you have to say is, unfortunately, the mind works in two different ways, and I won't go into the psychology of it, but I'll have a conversation with anybody. But what be saying to them is, well, look, I have this stack of information here that I've researched about what I'm talking about. So if you're telling me that this information is wrong, then you must have done the research that's more than I have. And I want to have a look at that to see. 10 times out of 10, they don't have any research. They just have an opinion. And an opinion is not fact. An opinion is just an opinion. All right. So never be afraid to debate somebody or talk to somebody about the subject, because you've done your research, but ask them for their research. And then you'll find out quick enough whether they actually have done the facts and the research, or whether they're just expressing an opinion. And then you can say, well, thanks for your opinion, but I don't really want it because I want to research. I want the evidence, not an opinion.
Yeah, that's the problem with talking to people who believe in the globe. They have all the scientific evidence, yeah, a body of work that is that has for a foundation, um, as far as I'm concerned, a load of lies. And so they can argue and argue and argue, and they can go round in circles arguing the science, but the foundation is for them sacrosanct, but for you it's just all um, rubbish. That's nonsense.
Remember, I said about back in 2016 that I changed my method because I started applying psychology. And part of applying the psychology is, if you and me were going to argue over whether the moon was made of cheese, we could argue all day about it. And at the end of the day, we'd probably still have our own opinions on it, right? So
Right.
I stopped arguing and debating over information and content, and start looking at the psychology of the person. Like looking at, say, you, for example, Dave, and say, well, how does David think? Will he challenge his own belief system, or is he stuck in a belief system? And if he is stuck in a belief system, what evidence is he using to be stuck in that belief system? You see, I'm not going to be arguing over the content. I'm looking at how your mind works and whether you have the ability to change your mind. If I have a stack of information that's bigger than your stack that disagrees with what you say, are you an adult minded person to turn around and go, yeah, Alan, I had a look at your evidence and you're right. That actually is better than what I have. Are you prepared to do that? Are you in your comfort zone and you go, I don't care what you have. I don't care what you have. This is what I believe, and that's it. See, that's closed minded, right? That's why fluid belief system is very important. Now, I don't have a stack of information, by the way, David. I haven't looked into that subject. I'm just using this as an example. But this is why you look at a person's mind and not argue over the content.
Yeah. What I found is when you talk to people that um, believe in the globe, they are close-minded to the subject of flat Earth, and they will just go around in circles themselves. And so, no matter how much evidence you've got, that there's always a antithesis to the thesis. Yes. Now you can say, well, yeah, that's fair enough. Uh, there's always an antithesis to a thesis, but on top of that, you've got a synthesis. Yes, where the two come together and you pull out the bits that are important.
Mm.
And yes, that synthesis is what counts. Yes, not the thesis, not the antithesis, but the synthesis.
Mm.
But unfortunately, that synthesis can also be biased one way or the other to your belief system. Yes, and
Yeah.
so it's a very very difficult situation to get out of, and
Well, you need to have a fluid belief system. If you have a fluid
yeah,
belief system, which means that you're willing to look at everything that you believe, then you won't have that bias because you're happy to change your mind. And this is why I base the fluid belief system on two things. Number one is the quote from Aristotle, which is the mark of an educated mind is to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Most people see it's true, it's not true, and it's black and white. But there's a gray area there where Aristotle said you entertain the information, but you don't. But what you say is, well, can you give me the evidence to back up what you're saying? Okay, so you entertain it, and that means you're parking your ego because a lot of the time the ego is involved, right? Then the other side of it is that when Bruce Lee was doing a black and white interview and he was talking about martial arts, he was saying that if you're going to do a fight and it's a street fight, instead of having these kind of rigid moves in martial arts, he said you have to be fluid and you have to go with the flow when you're fighting. And I thought, well, your mind has to be fluid as well. Like, you can't be rigid. You have to be fluid. As new information comes in, you have to challenge your own belief systems. But a lot of the people don't have a fluid belief system. They're stuck in a belief and they're not prepared to move. And what I'm trying to do, you asked me at the start, what is Circle of White Light all about? Is trying to get people to have a fluid belief system and realize that because there've been just so many lies and manipulation from the elites and the global control structure, that we have to be fluid because we've been told so many lies, we don't know what's true and what's not. So as long as you have a fluid mind, then you don't mind challenging your own belief system.
yes, I was going to bring up something similar to that because that's part of what I understand as well, what you brought up. But the other part is being able to entertain two ideas simultaneously, and which may contradict each other, and still stay sane about it. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to somebody about the flat Earth the other day, and this guy went completely crazy. Yes, oh, that's not the flat Earth. He just could not. He just did not want to think about it. He wanted to think about space as being millions and millions of miles into the distance. And I was saying, well, hang on, let's come back. Let's talk about 50,000 miles or 10,000 miles rather than billions. And he didn't like that idea. Yes.
Well,
And
you see, the thing you actually talked to him regarding the content, and that's why he lost the plot. If you went to him and said, "If I had information that challenged what you believe, how would you react? How do you react when people challenge what you believe?" You see, I'm not talking about the flat earth or anything. I'm just asking, how do you react? How does your mind work when I give you information that challenges what you believe? And then you find out exactly how they think, right? And then that's my approach using the psychology.
right. Well, it's definitely a good idea to be able to look at things and stay neutral rather than getting all het up and emotionally involved. Yes, definitely. If you can just stay neutral and look at this subject. I mean, I was talking to a guy the other day, a very, very intelligent guy, about um, about nuclear bombs being fake. Yes, and he couldn't stand that. Yes, the actual idea. And I said, well, they've done this research Oh, I don't care. A few people have done research. We've got masses of evidence to say that nuclear bombs are real and it's a real threat. But, you know, bombs are real. Nuclear bombs, that's something else. Yes.
Yeah, well, look, we're not there. I'm not in the White House. I'm not in the underground bunker. I haven't seen it. So I can't turn around and say for sure, it's great how many people come out and are definite. Yes, we have nuclear weapons. Have you seen them? Well, no, I haven't actually seen them. Well, how do you know we have them then? Oh, well, because he told me they have them, I mean, one of the things I did when I was doing my training in psychology, the psychologist lined 10 of us up in the line. Okay. And he said, right, I'm going to whisper something in the ear of this person on this end. And I want you to whisper it to everybody else in the line until it gets to the last 10th member of the person on the line. So he whispers something in the ear and it goes all the way down the line. And then the psychologist said, right, what was said? And the 10th person who said it was not what was said at the start. And
Exactly.
we call them Chinese whispers, right? Because people being people, they'll embellish stories. Some people will embellish a story or they'll change it or they'll fit it around their own belief system. And this is what he was trying to teach us. So don't believe everything you hear. So, and people change stories. So again, these are one of many experiments that he did with us as the class when we were learning the psychology.
Yeah, well, we did something like that back in the 80s on courses that I attended too. The other thing, apart from the nuclear bomb being a fear factor thing to control people, you've got to fear the bomb. Yes, I was surprised when I got out of the army, um, which I'd been in for 4 years, and I was speaking to my auntie, and she was like in fear about the nuclear bomb. She'd been living the fear factor for 4 years whilst I'd been in the army, sort of just doing the normal army work. And I was so surprised because I was not at all worried about bombs or anything. I was just getting on with my job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you said the magic word there. You said fear. That's exactly where they want us to be vibrating, the frequency of fear. And that's what COVID was all about, the fear. Because when people are in fear, they can't critically think. Their prefrontal cortex gets shut down and they're in fight or flight mode. So when people are in fear, they're not thinking straight, and that's where they want us.
same thing with dinosaurs. I mean, are dinosaurs real? Yes, they say they found the bones. Yes, but maybe not. Yes, perhaps once again, um, they say that the dinosaurs were wiped out because of a meteorite. But what's the proof of meteorites? Well, it's dinosaurs. Yes, the fact that dinosaurs were wiped out, you believe in meteorites.
Mm.
But as far as I'm concerned, meteorites are not real.
Mm.
Yes, not in the way they tell you. Yes, there might be things, balls that fall out of the sky for different reasons. For gases congealing up in the higher atmosphere, which get too heavy and then fall down. And they might call that a meteorite. But are meteorites real? Yes.
Well,
Do
again,
you, do you accept the narrative? Yeah.
well, they have the technology. I mean, they've got, well, they want to develop Project Bluebeam because that's going to be the last card, according to Werner von Braun. I interviewed Carol Roslin, and she worked for Werner von Braun for 3 years. And he said the last card would be Project Bluebeam, where they use holographic technology, advanced holographic technology, to fake meteorites or Jesus in the sky or UFOs or whatever, because that's the last card. And we'll have to see. I mean, archaeologists get grants from governments all the time, and they come across things and they find things, and they're probably told that that doesn't fit in with the dogma that we want to program the people. So whatever you find there, we'll actually hide it or destroy it. And if you say anything, you're going to lose your grant. So I'm sure archaeologists have found things that go against what we've been told, and they're told to shut up and hide it, don't, destroy it. So again, we are, there's so many lies out there as to what's going on. You get very skeptical of what's being said. And I think it's important to, again, question everything, and it keeps your mind healthy.
Yeah, I've heard that dinosaur bones, um, very, very real dinosaur bones, are fabricated in China. Yes, that's where they make them. So I don't know how true that is either.
It's
Yes.
probably AliExpress. Maybe you can buy them on AliExpress or Temu or something like that.
Yeah. Well, if it's true, then it's sort of secret. Yes. Um, but it's a narrative to not only create fear, but also to explain oil. Yes.
Mm.
Now, oil is a natural produce of the earth, but they're saying it's fossil fuels. Yes. I don't know if you've seen any videos on that. Yes.
I've looked into a little bit of that, and oil is something that is abundant, and there's no scarcity of it. But they always play the scarcity game anyway with oil, because it makes them more money. But oil is overly abundant, and it's not running out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Um, well, somebody said it's more abundant than water, but I'm not sure if that's true.
Mm.
But it's like the blood of earth, if you like. Yes. And so it's natural. It's something that, in the same way our body can reproduce and blood, yes, um, the earth can too.
Mm.
So there's no scarcity, but in the beginning they created the scarcity as a fear factor.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, we have free energy devices. We don't need oil. We have the technology out there for free energy devices, but again, they've hidden that technology because anybody who has a car that can power itself, or have massive mileage, if 2,000 miles on an electric car, if you could do that with a battery, it instantly makes all the other electric cars obsolete. So they don't allow that advanced technology or free energy technology out because it affects their bottom line and their way of making money. It's all control.
yeah, yeah. We'll come back to Tesla on that one. Yes,
Well, Tesla has his own car. He made a car that actually ran itself, And there's a friend of mine who is Polish, went over to Serbia because Tesla was Serbian, and they have a Tesla museum over there in Serbia. And the things that Tesla had designed and built are still running in the museum.
yeah, incredible. Yeah, my research into Tesla, there's just so much information. Yes, and everybody could have free electricity. That's another thing. But giving us all meters, and I believe about 100 years ago we were given the choice or something that we could have, that they would make us, um, oh, this is going back quite a while, um, collateral for the government, and the government, everybody would be a price. There would be a price on everybody, and they would take those prices, and that would be the wealth of the nation. But having done that, having made people commodities, they said that they would give us free energy, which was the way it was for a few years, and then they gave us meters and said, no, you got to pay for it.
Well, the birth cert is there, we're sold onto the stock exchange. Our birth cert, there's a value put on us, and we have this fund that apparently is our money, but we can't get access to that. Is the Sesque fund, I believe it's called, and there is a website you can go to see what your value of your fund is, but and that money should be used to pay off your bills and pay off any parking tickets and stuff. But they don't allow us to do that, and you have to be very cute and very smart when you go into court to actually apply that. And there's a few people who've done it, but a lot of people are not aware of it. So we do have a value on the system. As soon as we're born, the birth cert makes us into a straw man and turns us into a corporation. Our uppercase name is the straw man, is our corporation name. The lowercase is us as a human being. And yeah, when we're born, there's a value put on us, and then it's floated on the stock exchange. So yeah, there is a value there.
That's a whole deep, deep rabbit hole with the difference between lawful and legal.
Totally.
Yes, and I imagine that I'm looking at a lawful man, not necessarily a legal man.
Yeah.
Yes, or maybe you're both. Yes, you play with it. You can be legal one moment and lawful the next.
Well, it's all got to do with consent. You can
Yeah.
consent to what you want to use. If you go down that road, it's all about consent. And they always say the maximum law is that consent creates the law. So if you don't consent, the law doesn't exist. But unfortunately, we have a police force like the UK that don't understand the law. They're not trained properly in the law, and they just use force to get what they want. So all that has to change.
Ah, so you're familiar with Professor Cahill?
Oh yeah, I've interviewed Dolores Cal. Yeah.
That I was on a march with her back in 2021 during the marches in the freedom marches, and somebody said to me, "Look, we want you to be her bodyguard for the day." Yes. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Guardians 300.
No.
It's a lawful or common law group of people that that want to be a replacement or a not replacement, but a monitoring force for the police, for the legal side, you know. So we tell them what they can do lawfully, and they say, well, we can do all of this legally. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what we'd have to do is, they all need to be retrained. Just watch your time there, David, because we're going to have to
Yeah,
wrap it up there.
I've just watched my time. Anyway, this is the hat for the Guardians 300. You can find the link on Telegram. I'll put the link under this video, as well as the links for the videos we've been talking about, so that people can have a look at that themselves. But the Guardians 300, yes. If there is another lockdown, hopefully the Guardians 300 will be able to keep businesses open and stop them from closing down small family businesses, which would be of great advantage. I mean, there's a new place that's opened up just out the road, and I gave them the card. Yes, there is a card somewhere. I've got a box. Right. Here you go. Guardians 300. That's the card. So, yeah, Guardians 300. And one of the things Guardian 300 do is they also look into um, flat Earth. Yes. Yeah, they don't say, you got to believe, you got to do this, you got to do that. But hey, look at this. It
Mm,
looks real to us. Yeah.
okay, that's it. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. But these people are all over the UK and um, they should be in Ireland too. Yes.
I haven't heard of them over here. I mean, they could be, but I haven't heard of them personally, you know.
Yeah. Well, um, Professor Cahill, on that day, I was supposed to be a bodyguard, but she was everywhere hugging people, as she does. And basically, I lost her towards the end because she went off with the head of the Guardians 300, Mike. Um, and he's an ex-army guy, by the way. Yeah.
Mm.
And I call the Guardians 300 the Dad's Army. Yes, I mean you know this the series Dad's
Yeah,
Army.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's similar to that, only working for the people rather than the army. Um, yeah, she went off with the head of the Guardians 300 to have a meal. Yeah, and I mean the crowd was so big, I lost contact of her in the end. But